promoting businesses and organizations to help them reach their full potential. Lighten the path to the success of your business. Enhancing the lives of our listeners by talking about things that matters most. Helping you to shine your light emotionally, mentally, spiritually, socially, and physically. Spreading positive vibes. You've got it locked and you're listening to Light Vibrations, brought to you by Lyte Communications right here on CBN Radio 90.9 FM. And now your host and our director, Natasha Letza.
Hello, you've got it locked and you're listening to your girl Tasha T here, bringing to you another episode of Light Vibrations. Today, our topic continues. We're back in here talking about the Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Project that is being sponsored by the Pan American Health Organization, the Ministry of Health and Social Development, and the BVI Health Services Authority. Today in the studio, we have with us Miss Kaya Huggins here to talk about building healthy relationships. Welcome to the program, Kaya.
Hi, thank you very much.
Yes, the pleasure is all mine. We're here talking about building the mental resilience, in inspiring mental wellness, and talking about issues that could contribute to mental unwellness, and what we can do to kind of eradicate those issues and to promote mental wellness in us individually and collectively as a community. Now, we all know that relationships are very important to our mental health and mental well-being. Let's talk a bit about healthy relationships. What does a healthy relationship look like?
Well, thank you. A healthy relationship to me is like a delicious meal. Mm-hmm. When you think about a delicious meal, you're thinking about all the different ingredients that you put in there, right? Different ingredients that makes it flavorful and appealing, not only to the palate, but also to the eye. Mm-hmm. So I think that a healthy relationship needs to be great. Mm-hmm. It needs to be great. And I'll tell you a little bit more about being great. Mm-hmm. All right? So some of these ingredients, we want to talk about trust. We need to trust. We need trust in a relationship. To me, trust is like the foundation of what a relationship is built on. I know sometimes persons hurt others in relationship. There's some level of hurt, misunderstanding, betrayal, and these things happen because of different reasons. But I know that some persons believe that once you have broken that trust, it cannot be regained. Mm-hmm. But if trust is broken, you can definitely salvage that in a relationship. But it will take some work, right? It will take a lot of different components that most people aren't really aware of, because they don't realize that when the trust is gone, the foundation of the relationship becomes unstable. Mm-hmm. So now they basically have to go back and rebuild that trust. So it takes some time, but it's definitely something that can be done. It's doable.
So Kaya, I wanted to jump on something you just said with regards to you can fix trust. I don't know, I disagree with you on that, because I feel as though I always say to myself, you did say trust is the foundation. Mm-hmm. Trust is the foundation, and once that foundation is broken, to me it's like like a glass, and looking at yourself in this glass, and then you break the mirror, but you put the pieces back together, and when you look at yourself, your reflection could never be the same. To me, persons who want you to build trust and do this and do that, those are mechanisms to keep you hostage in a relationship. So now, if you cheat on me or something, and I say, okay, for me to forgive you, you have to build back this trust. So now I need to see your phone, I need to know your whereabouts 24 hours in a day, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. To me, that to me it's like counterproductive, because it's like you now become a hostage, or you now become like some kind of inmate to claim, say, you building back something that really can't be built back.
So one of the things I would say about that, right? When you're talking about relationship, you're talking about two individuals, and we want to think of an individual as a whole person, right? And if you are a whole person, there's certain things that come with being whole. And you don't need to depend on somebody else to make you whole. Or, you know, sometimes people get married and they say you're complete now. It's not about being complete. You were always complete. And so even in relationships where trust has been broken, you have to be an individual. And your happiness cannot be determined based on your partner and what your partner gives to you, because you have to remember you are a whole person. So that brings me to another point about a healthy relationship. It takes some effort, right? And when we talk about effort, we're talking about, when I'll go back to my analogy of a good pot or, you know, a delicious meal. We need salt, right?
Yeah.
So think of effort as the salt in the pot. We need effort to make all the ingredients in the relationship come together to create that perfect balance, right? Sometimes we can become complacent, we can become too relaxed, and the relationship gets boring and it loses interest. Well, we have to remember that our relationship is important. Trust is that foundation. So if it's broken, the relationship is important. I'm a whole person, and being a whole person also, I take in responsibility for myself, right? We have to take responsibility for our own feelings, our own thoughts, our behavior. So even if somebody hurts you, that does not mean that you have to become a hostage. Because the truth is, those are the things that you get to control. You control how you feel, you control how you think, and you control how you behave. And you cannot put that blame on somebody else. So the relationship takes some effort. Everybody has to bring 100%. You are a whole person, right? And you bringing all of that to the relationship. Bad things happen, yes. And in a relationship also, we also need to know how to resolve conflict, right? This is just part of life. Things gonna come up, difficulties are going to come at, difficult circumstances gonna come at us. It's gonna happen. Being in a healthy relationship is knowing how to compromise, how to respect each other, listen to each other, be grateful for each other. It is knowing that that there gonna be some disagreements. There gonna be some compromises that we have to make for the relationship to work. But at the end of the day, when we trust each other, then I could say it's in the best interest of the relationship.
Okay, well, you mentioned some building blocks of a healthy relationship. You mentioned the trust, resolving conflicts, compromise, listening, and being grateful and whatnot. And I think we could just go ahead and pick at them one at a time. I want to spend some time on this trust, because this trust is a problem. This trust, when I made the comment and said that about being a hostage, not because you don't trust you're a hostage, but what persons try to get you to do to build back that trust put you in a hostage situation. Now, I would be interested to hear how you say trust can be rebuilt, because to me, when people say, okay, that trust is broken, and okay, to build back my trust, you got to do this, is almost like, no, this person, no, that's the warden, and you're the inmate, because now you have to follow a set of guidelines that half of the time still ain't giving you no headway in making back or building back any trust within a relationship. So talk about them. I'd be interested to hear about those elements that you spoke of earlier, of how once trust is broken, which you said it can be built back. How do you do that?
Another aspect is effective communication, right? And based on what I'm hearing you saying, I'm hearing elements of narcissistic personalities. I'm hearing codependency, right? And those two elements, basically, I don't know if elements is the correct term I should use, but basically when those personalities and those experiences are present in a relationship, they tend to be unhealthy. So that's something that we need to consider. And I won't say necessarily being a codependent is a mental illness. Narcissism, yes, we do tackle that as a mental illness that we can, you know, provide some interventions for. And even person with codependency, because you're thinking about persons with low self-esteem and just that need to be in a relationship for, you know, different reasons, and we could talk about that a little later on. But I want to go back to effective communication, because we're talking about, you're talking about building trust, and you're talking about that being a very significant part of a relationship. Yes, it could be seen like the foundation, but as you build that relationship, you need good effective communication for that to happen. So good communication is more than just being able to talk to somebody. This might sound a little far-fetched, but it really starts with ourselves being able to take responsibility for our own thoughts, feelings, and our behavior, like I mentioned before. Communication is about being comfortable with myself to say what I think and feel in a healthy way, right? Each person in a relationship feel free to express themselves and their feelings using an assertive style of communication and not putting the blame on somebody else. And a lot of times that's what we do in relationships, right? And so even because the trust has been compromised, that you're talking about that person now want you to do this and do that. No, everybody in the relationship needs to take responsibility for themselves, right? I can take responsibility for how I feel and react regardless of what has been done to me. That means that I will control my own negative reactions. I can self-soothe, I can self-talk, and I don't have to throw a tantrum, right? We can then talk together with love and communicate how, you know, I think about the situation, what I feel. And healthy communication is also about listening to each other and listening with empathy, you know, and not just waiting to respond to justify our behavior or even just to prove our points. When we are able to listen to each other, we can feel comfortable to be vulnerable. We can feel, you know, open to just talk about, you know, I really felt hurt when this happened, and have that communication there. I can say, this is how I felt when this situation occurred. This is what I was thinking. So we know that the other person is not going to be annoyed because they're listening empathetically. You know, they don't need to get upset because they're interested in finding out how that made me feel. What am I thinking? You see? And that's where the effectiveness, the effective communication comes in. And that, when you have that in a relationship, even though the trust might have been broken, you can see by just using effective communication, being assertive, being able to tell the other person, this is how I feel, this is what I'm thinking, then that can bring the relationship closer together, and the other person doesn't get offended because, you know, their partner is telling them how they felt about what happened.
Definitely. And you bringing up some very important elements that, you know, I really want to talk about. You mentioned the narcissism, and, you know, very important, that listening, that communication, that taking responsibility for, you know, what you have done and how you may have contributed to the issues in the relationship, being honest. And, you know, very importantly, it said, you know, basically listening to what the person is saying and feeling what the person is saying, not necessarily listening so you could respond. Because when you're listening so you could respond, all you're waiting for them is to say the wrong thing, and you gone from 0 to 100, and that's not really effective communication. But before we deal with those issues, you know, which I really want to jump on, I want us to talk about this narcissistic personality. I want to go a little bit into that. What does a narcissistic person look like? What are some of their characteristics? How do you know when you're in a relationship with somebody that is narcissistic? And how do narcissistic people operate in relationships?
One of the things I would say, because the whole topic of narcissism is a deep topic. It's going to take more than a minute or two to talk about. You can read a whole big book, on identifying narcissism and dealing with somebody who is narcissistic and the effects that it have about those around them. But one of the things I can say, a person who is narcissistic, everything is about them. There's an element of manipulation in the relationship. They have that need to be needed, and sometimes they would go at length, even if it makes the other person very uncomfortable, to ensure that their feelings are attended to. That need to be needed and wanted. And so it makes the relationship very uncomfortable, and the relationship could never be healthy if one person in the relationship is narcissistic. Right? But I think that's a topic for another discussion, another day, because that one is really deep. It's very deep.
Okay.
But what I can say too, in terms of building that healthy relationship, the communication is good, but they need to also be respectful. So respect is another element that I would want to touch on. All right, so we're gonna add this. Oftentimes we can't respect others when we are not able to accept and take responsibilities for our own thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And I'm saying a lot about our own thoughts, feelings, and our behaviors, because I said earlier, in a relationship, there are two people who are whole. They are complete individuals, right? So they have to be able to take that responsibility for those three things that only they alone can control. Nobody can control my thoughts. Nobody can control the way I feel. And sometimes you would hear people say, well, she made me do this, or he made me do that. Nobody can't make you do anything. You choose to do it. That is your choice. And a lot of times when we make these statements, I would tell my clients that you are giving somebody the upper hand on you. You are allowing somebody to control you when you say things like that. So I'm trying to help them to be more mindful about the statements that they're making. Is that person really making you do that? Or you're deciding to do that? You're making that decision to behave this way, to think that way, or feel this way. And this is demonstrated when we blame other people for whatever our experiences are, right? We project our feelings onto other people, and these are serious things that hurt relationships. But when you have respect, I respect myself, I respect my value system, I respect who I am. And so when I respect myself, it makes it easier for me to respect somebody else. So having respect in a relationship is very important to build that healthy relationship. And I'm taking responsibility for myself. I'm able to regulate myself. I'm able to take care of my own needs. I don't need you to do this for me. Yes, I will be happy if you do this for me, but my happiness is not dependent on whether you do it or not. You see, because I'm taking responsibility for myself. I love myself, so I'm going to take responsibility for myself, and I can easily respect that need in other people. I could respect their wants, I could respect their opinions, even if it's different from mine. And not because someone is angry with me means that I will be angry with them. Nor do I allow something that someone did or said change my emotional state or even affect me negatively. Because remember, the choice is mine. I can choose to feel however I want to feel, and I have a right to feel that way, right? So this goes back to taking responsibility for myself. I don't make someone else responsible for my happiness.
Well, Kaya, this is a very interesting interview because you're mentioning a lot of things and you're teaching us a lot of things that we really need to know to build these healthy relationships. It was very interesting that you talked about, being owners of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. You're saying that, and that should be the case, right? But we all know that's not the case for many people. Sometime back on the show, we had Dr. Ruben come on. Then we were talking about emotional intelligence, and she said that most people have the emotional intelligence of children. Most adults have the emotional intelligence of children. So if we're dealing with an adult population who are mentally, they're acting and they're thinking as though they're probably preteens or teenagers, how do you expect to elicit this very mature response to dealing with relationship issues? Now, it's a good thing, and I'm loving what you're saying, but I'm looking at it, realistically. When we're upset, we only care about what we're upset about. If we're upset and you come with some other drama, okay, we're gonna find another million ways to act and blame it on you because you're the problem. We seldom look inward to ourselves. We always looking at other people because somehow we feel like everything somebody's doing to us and nothing we're doing to ourselves. So one, we done battling with that mental health issue, that thinking we're outside the scope of ourselves. Two, we have a bit of narcissism going on because it's always somebody else and not us. So in a relationship, it's going to be hard for people to have that mature outlook that you just described. Internalizing, what did I do? How did I make putting yourself in your partner's shoes to be able to effectively communicate and resolve the issues. And now you talk about respect. Respect is huge. Respect is something that men always say, or most of them always say, that their women don't give them. And then respect in turn, men don't give it to women. You in relationships, but you dragging your woman, you doing this, you doing that, you're not respecting her, you're not respecting her mind, you're not respecting her body, you're not respecting different things. So I mean, if we're coexisting in a relationship with all of these issues, how do we bring it all together to have some synergy and to truly try to build as healthy a relationship as possible?
That brings me actually to another point. In relationships, especially in forming a healthy relationship, there must be boundaries. All right? We must have boundaries. We must be able to let people know how we want to be treated. And a lot of times we don't do that. We have to let them know what it is we're going to tolerate and what we're going to accept. These are our standards, and how people treat us largely depends on the boundaries that we set with them, right? I mean, I sound very passionate about about boundaries, right? But really and truly, these are things that exist naturally in a healthy relationship, because I care about somebody. I respect that individual. So therefore, if I know that my partner doesn't like something, I would respect their boundary. I know that they don't appreciate me speaking to them with a particular tone, then I can do some self-reflection and I can determine, because it's my choice, it's always my choice. I can determine, for the betterment of the relationship, to enhance our relationship, my partner doesn't like this, so I can make an adjustment, because it's not bad, because within boundaries we are also operating within our own value systems. And as I say, values, one of the things that's very interesting is that sometimes we get into relationships with people that we really should not be in a relationship with. And when I say that, if you recognize that your values are totally different from somebody who you may have a liking to, in terms of maybe they look attractive or something, but your value systems are different. If you get into a relationship with that person, perhaps you can almost see that there are going to be some challenges, because we're not thinking the same. We're not on the same path. We're not on the same page. So there are going to be some challenges, and it seems like that relationship might be a constant pull and tug, right? So you want to ensure that when you set your boundaries, even within a friendship, you understand that you are determining how you're going to be living your life with this person, right? If this person cannot respect your boundaries, if their value systems are not in alignment with your values, then perhaps it's not a wise idea to be in a intimate relationship with this person.
Definitely, and I love that. You basically single-handedly answered my question right there. And somebody told me one time, they said, you know what, people gonna treat you the way you allow them to treat you. So that speaks to the boundaries, and you definitely have to have that intact, because if you don't, they will drag you, they will treat you any kind of how, and you wouldn't know when enough is enough, because you don't have any standard to measure that against.
Right.
So definitely the boundaries. and I know, like, in my relationship, like, if I feel like my partner is talking to me too hard, I would tell him something like, oh, so as a side thing now, like like you demote me now as a side thing, and he hate that. Like, so he know, like, okay, I don't like you speaking to me like that, but you know, I say it in a joking way, but while being serious. And you know, he be like, no, and then he will correct his tone one time. So it's not like, you know, it's not like you just have to find your ways, but meanwhile sticking to what you know, how you want to be treated, how you want to be spoken to, how you know, how you want your partner to relate to you, and definitely keep those boundaries intact. Okay, yeah. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe we are almost close to our half hour here, and it's so many things that we didn't get to touch on. Anything else you want to talk about right now?
Well, yes, you know, because we're talking about healthy relationship, and I think it's very important to also mention in a healthy relationship, there needs to be love. Love needs to be love naturally would be a part of a healthy relationship, and also being grateful to the person that you are with, right? Loving and appreciating who you are in the relationship with also helps to build a healthy relationship. When we express gratitude to each other, it helps the other person know that they are valued in the relationship, and their contributions are not going unnoticed, right? Being able to love everything about that person as well. We accept people for who they are, and then we decide, I could be in a relationship with this person. You don't need to come into a relationship to change yourself, and the person isn't in a relationship to change you. They're in the relationship with you because they love you, because they accept you with all your faults. But you know what? In order for somebody to accept your faults, you first have to accept your faults. You have to love yourself for somebody else to be able to love you. So it starts with, again, yourself. Being in a healthy relationship happens because I'm a healthy person, and I will attract somebody who is also healthy. And a lot of times we find ourselves in unhealthy relationships because we ourselves are not healthy. We are unhealthy, and we're going to attract people who are also unhealthy. And then we're going to try to make it work, and then we come up with all these different issues and challenges that we're not really prepared to deal with, like you mentioned, in terms of the whole aspect of just being in a relationship and how challenging it is. That a healthy relationship has challenges, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be so difficult to deal with like if you're in an unhealthy relationship.
I want to stop you right there and just piggyback on something you were saying with regards to, you know, changing. You shouldn't have to change your fault. I don't really agree with you totally with that statement, because we are the individuals, but we have bad habits. And if somebody has identified a bad habit that you have in the relationship, I don't see nothing wrong with, you know, changing a habit. You know, I find a lot of people love to hang on to their dirty, negative ways that's not getting them anywhere. So if you like, I mean, there's certain things, if you meet somebody doing, you don't go with them knowing that this is that person and try to change them. That's true. Like if you are a smoker, I know you are a smoker, and then all of a sudden me and you together and then decide, oh, you shouldn't smoke. No, because I know you are a smoker. But if you have little things about your personality and the personality traits that you yourself could agree to, okay, that's a bad quality I have, what's wrong in changing that?
Nothing is wrong, because the thing is, we live and we grow, right? We develop, and we are also constantly trying to enhance ourselves. Right? So if my partner, my husband, or even a friend of mine that, you know, because we have different types of relationship, says to me, well, you know, you should really pay attention to that, you should work on that, nothing is wrong with that. But I have to choose. I have to decide that it's something that I want to work on. And if it's something I don't want to work on, then my friend or my husband need to respect my decision and accept me for who I am.
But what if that is causing a problem in the relationship?
Then we're talking about an unhealthy relationship.
Not necessarily, because you have an unhealthy action. Why now the whole relationship have to be unhealthy? If the problem is within you, something that you're doing that I don't like, I mean, it goes back to, you know, like you said, the compromise and the respect and all of that. I mean, not because you have an element that I don't like, mean the whole entire relationship is unhealthy.
No, the whole relationship may not be unhealthy. There are challenges in all relationships, right? But we're able to better deal with those challenges if we're functioning from a healthy perspective. And that, I think that is something that we need to remember, right? And I want to leave this with you. Remember that your relationship can be great. Be great. When we talk about be great, we're talking about our boundaries. We're talking about effective communication. We're talking about being grateful and expressing gratitude towards each other. We're talking about respect. We're talking about the effort that we put into the relationship to make it work. We're talking about admiration, and love for that person, unconditional love, and the foundation. We're talking about trust. Be great.
Be great, ladies and gentlemen. You had it locked, and you've been listening to your girl Tasha T here, bringing to you another episode of Lyte Vibrations. Remember, this episode is being sponsored by the Ministry of Health and Social Development, the Pan American Health Organization, and the BVI Health Services Authority, as we continue on our way to promote mental health and resilience in the territory of the BVI. And all of this is a part of the mental health and psychosocial support project. Today we had Kaya Huggins in here, keeping it real, breaking it down for us about building healthy relationships, and building very healthy relationships are very important to maintaining a healthy mental well-being, and you know, it actually too aids in resilience and supporting resilience. So once again, you know, as we continue to bring you more interviews, tune in this time next week as we continue our conversation, as we seek to build mental wellness and resilience here as a part of the mental health and psychosocial support project. Until next time, thank you for tuning in, and blessings.
Thank you for tuning in to Lyte Vibration, and don't forget to tune in this time next week as we continue to bring you life-changing information. Until next time, shine your light.